Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar, Avoiding the Distress of Sidewalks Assessments. My name is Lindsay Pena, and I am the Director of Grant Administration at the National States Geographic Information Council. If you are unfamiliar with our organization, NSGIC exists to advance the effective national coordination of geospatial information by supporting state-led cooperation. We serve as the national forum for the development of capable and future-oriented geospatial leadership. If you'd like more information on how to get involved with us, please visit our website at www.nisjic.org. Some reminders for our call today. All attendees have been muted on entrance. There will be some time at the end of the presentation for Q&A, so please place your questions into the chat box. The chat will then be read aloud and answered at the end of the presentation. Additionally, a recording of version of this webinar will be made available afterwards and added to the NSGIC knowledge base on the NSGIC website. With that, I will now turn it over to our presenters. Thank you again for joining us.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Good afternoon, everybody. The presentation today is Avoiding the Distress of Sidewalks Assessments, and this is a play on words related to reporting the distresses of sidewalks as they pertain to coming up with overall condition indexes and determining what kind of shape your sidewalks are in. Today we're going to be talking about what are the reasons why you want to do a sidewalk assessment, some of the types of defects and distresses that we look for, and we're going to go over some of the technology and what we're doing with the resulting data. Go ahead, Scott. I'm Sandra Laszlo. With me is Scott Jones. We are both with WGI, and the objective of our presentation, like I said, is just to provide everybody an overview of the current techniques that are out there, why the solution that we're pioneering we feel is superior, and how we can actually take this data and provide it to clients and local government officials to really help drive decision making. So let's jump into the main question. Why perform a sidewalk assessment? The Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 was a landmark civil rights law that prohibited discrimination against individuals with disabilities in all areas of public life. The act includes requirements for accessible design in public spaces. Title II of the ADA specifically applies to state and local governments, mandating that all public services, programs, and activities must be accessible to individuals with disabilities. The 2004 ADA Standards for Accessible Design outline specific requirements for sidewalks and curb ramps. These standards include specifications for width, slope, cross slope, surface texture, and curb cutouts, ensuring that individuals using wheelchairs or other mobility aids can navigate these spaces safely and effectively. The 2010 ADA Standards for Accessible Design further clarified and expanded requirements for state and local governments and were adopted by not only the Department of Justice, but the Department of Transportation as well. The details gave additional guidance on the dimensions and features necessary for compliant sidewalks and curb ramps. Furthermore, under Code of Federal Regulations, Section 35.150D, state and local governments are required to develop a transition plan if they have more than 50 employees in a public works office. This transition plan is a critical document that outlines the steps the public entity will take to ensure that its current services, policies, practices, and facilities that don't meet ADA standards are brought into compliance. The plan must include a schedule for making the necessary modifications, a method for providing feedback to the public, and an individual responsible for overseeing its implementation. And the reason why this is all being pushed forward is to help minimize liability. So in 2014, there was a landmark case, Mark Wiltis versus the City of Los Angeles, resulted in a $1.4 billion class action settlement that was approved, requiring the City of Los Angeles to repair its sidewalks over the next 30 years to comply with the ADA Act. This settlement is one of the largest disability access settlements in U.S. history and was a response to the city's failure to maintain sidewalks in a condition that was accessible to individuals with disabilities. And that basically equates to about $46 million per year spent in curb ramp or sidewalk improvements. In 2019, a significant lawsuit was filed against the city of Philadelphia regarding the accessibility of its sidewalks, specifically the repair and isolation of curb ramps. This lawsuit was brought forward by a group of disabled residents and advocacy groups highlighting the city's failure to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act, requiring streets to be accessible. As a result of this lawsuit, the city agreed to a 15-year plan to install and fix at least 10,000 sidewalk curb ramps. This plan included specific milestones requiring the installation and repair of 2,000 ramps every 3 years. The City of Philadelphia Streets Department estimated the cost of installing each ADA curb ramp was initially around $15,000, and they assumed that there would be some cost reductions as the replacement became more efficient. The estimated cost per ramp is expected to decrease to about $12,000 and then fall to $7,500. But even at that $7,500 mark, that's still $75 million liability the city has to carry over 15 years. And another reason to assess sidewalks is maintenance. The maintenance, typically government entities will develop sidewalk and curb ramp maintenance, will initiate curb ramp maintenance when a citizen calls to complain about an issue. This is a reactive approach and doesn't allow the government entity to properly budget for repairs beyond looking at previous year's budget trends. With limited funding, more focus could be applied on maximizing the impact of each dollar spent to get ahead of the complaints or conditions that open them up to liability. Though complaints requiring immediate attention will always occur, strategic planning is crucial. Good planning that involves the identification of risks to prioritize repairs with a focused budget and reduced exposure to liability is worth the investment in sidewalk assessment. This approach to sidewalk maintenance necessitates balance between immediate response and long-term planning, ensuring safe, accessible walkways within budget constraints. So what we did here, the focus of this method that we employed was developed and implemented for a Florida county where we did a countywide sidewalk pavement and sidewalk assessment. In that, we went and we captured 650 miles of sidewalks using our system. And we then went and performed a condition index of the sidewalks. In addition, we captured LiDAR data for helping to determine some of the other ADA compliance issues. We captured imagery, and we also believe the data we collected is very important for other purposes beyond the original overall condition index. We think it's going to be important for like complete streets programs as well. So when we envisioned this assessment approach, we saw value beyond the original purpose. Some of the opportunities to repurpose the data were very considerable. One of the things we looked at was FDOT's Target Zero. It's a program used to reduce the amount of incidents between pedestrians and street traffic, and how the data that we were collecting through the combination of the additional LiDAR can be used to help local governments assess some of the impact of the intersections as they're laid out and how they can affect those interactions between pedestrians and vehicles. So what data do we collect? So here, we're just going to give a couple of examples of the types of data that we're looking for in a sidewalk assessment. Some of this is related to ADA compliance. Some of this is just for condition assessment of the materials the sidewalks are created from themselves. Here's an example of cracking in a vertical or a horizontal displacement. Here you can see this is kind of extreme conditions, but on the left we have a severe cross slope, and we also have a severe run slope on the right. So both are important for mobility assistance aids to ensure that as people are traversing the sidewalk, they don't tip over or have any kind of falling issues. Obstructions. This is, obviously a very, very important one. If somebody with a wheelchair or mobility aid can't actually traverse around obstructions, it's an issue. That's an ADA compliance uh, uh, violation. So also we look for the clear walking path, that if there are any obstructions in the sidewalk, that the pedestrians have at least a 4 foot or greater walking width to go around them. Next one is overgrowth and vegetation. Similar to an obstruction, these typically require maintenance where crews would have to come out and potentially remove the vegetation. But again, if it's something that prevents the passage of somebody with a disability along that sidewalk, it requires attention. Drop off. This is another important one. If you have any significant drop offs, again with a mobility device, it could cause a tripping or a falling hazard. So this is another type of distress that we look for. Next one is spalling. Again, if you have any irregularities in the surface of the concrete or the pedestrian path, again, can cause a tripping hazard and is a condition that needs to be addressed. Another one is ponding. Typically, this is related to issues with the sloping. If the ramp or the sidewalk was not constructed properly, or if there's been any kind of deflections or movement of the panels, you get the sediment collection. But it's an indication that during times of rain event, the sidewalk can become impassable. So that's another type of distress that we look for. And then the last one of the examples here is longitudinal cracking, just cracking straight down the center of the panel. We differentiate that from the horizontal cracking just because it could be indicative of a more serious condition where there's uplift in the center of the panel, could be tree roots, and we want to make sure that we're documenting these appropriately. So we believe this data should not be compartmentalized just for sidewalk assessment. If so, it's just great data that measures sidewalk cracks and other defects. All this data is linear referenced. All of the images, all of the defects that we collect, they all have coordinate references. They're all tied to a spatial reference. At the very least, beyond its purpose of sidewalk assessments, this is data that supercharges enterprise GIS for roadside analysis, and it also empowers local entities with just a wealth of information that they could run analysis on to develop different views of where their sidewalks are in their current condition. So, people see that, with other technologies, the advent of the smartphone. There's a big push recently for people to take iPhones or Android devices and just develop field applications where they go out and they take pictures, or they use the LiDAR sensor on the iPhone to measure sidewalk defects. But really, it's short-term information. The accuracies on these devices are not the best. While some testing has indicated that you could get within 1 inch horizontally or quarter-inch vertically with these were really only achieved because they were done with a really tight control network that had sub-millimeter geometric accuracy. Our solution does not rely upon that. Our solution uses GNSS in combination with an IMU to really give us very tight positional information, not only for our defects, but also for any of the ancillary LiDAR or the imagery that we collect. So what we deployed in that Florida county is what we've coined as our Gen 1 system. The advantage of this are clearly going to be efficiency and safety. We have people that are on this three-wheeled patroller, and we have collection speeds of roughly collecting 35 plus miles per day with this unit. We typically send out a two-man crew. One person is in a support vehicle, the other one is out on the patroller, and or on the ESV, and we have them out there collecting this information. It's highly visible. It's not intimidating. These vehicles have really good form to fit on a 4-foot sidewalk or even smaller. Since the operators are standing up, it doesn't have the same intimidation factor of, say, a golf cart or an ATV coming down a sidewalk. So we've found that this to be a very advantageous vehicle for this type of collection. So one of the primary considerations of our approach is verification of defects by multiple verifiable systems. We use the profiler, we use the LiDAR, and we use the camera. And we use multiple positioning technologies to validate all of our locations.
All right, thanks, Sandor. So as part of the presentation, I want to walk through some of the processing steps to help give context to the soup to nuts, the beginning and end of the process. So currently, we're looking at our backpack processing suite used to collect both spherical imagery and point cloud data. The point cloud data is processed into geo-referenced orthomosaics that are used in conjunction with the imagery. During this phase, the QA technician steps through the imagery along a trajectory and segment path to validate captured data while looking for distresses that may have been missed during field collection. Additionally, we use the spherical imagery collected from the backpack. The attribution of the sidewalk segments includes the photo centers for all images. Using the imagery, the sidewalk defects can be reviewed for defect type. By embedding the associated imagery reference, the imagery surrounding the defects can easily be assessed by the person reviewing the defect data. And as an example, looking at the blue arrow as the direction of travel, we can verify that the longitudinal crack between points 745 and 746 from the front-facing camera, and then use the backpack spherical image point named 2245 from the rear-facing camera to verify that defect. Looking at our sidewalk SSI profiler, we're going to look at an example of some data collected from this. So as discussed earlier, the profiler uses GPS and an IMU and a distance measurement unit to determine its position. A point laser measure the crack width and depth as the profile moves across the sidewalk. Additionally, during collection, the run and cross slope of the sidewalk is measured by the IMU. All sensors, of course, are calibrated to ensure optimum accuracy. So the profiler outputs various measurements as separate GIS datasets. These GIS datasets are compiled for quick aggregation of the distresses, and that facilitates the QA process in conjunction with the LiDAR-based ortho photos. The profiler, front-facing camera, and LiDAR systems all come together with the spherical imagery. We have an example of slope classification. The run and cross slope are logged as linear features based on an adjustable range definition. This allows for very granular or very broad consideration of the slope violations. This above shows the cross slope percentage derived from the profile sensor's IMU, color-coded and overlaid across the sidewalk. As stated earlier, the LiDAR data is used to validate the cross slope as well. Once all this field data is compiled and processed, it is then integrated into a database. But before the final geometry is generated from the robust OCI process, we export a custom table of the defects. which allows the client to quickly review, adjust weighting, and instantly see the effects across the entire dataset before running a baseline OCI. This is helpful for clients that emphasize on resolving certain defects or combinations of defects. It's important to note that we can exclude defects within the process. We can also adjust the severity of the weights used. And it's important to note that the index values are empirical and all relate to self or normalization. So the OCI tool. The OCI tool workflow includes a custom Esri-based toolbox for initial feature generation and integrated OCI adjustment reporting. The OCI tool aggregates the defect data by using spatial analysis to determine the proximity of the defect to sidewalk centerline. Once associated, the sidewalk centerline, the tool calculates the number of defects, applies the weights, and determines the final OCI score of the segment. The segment centerline is later associated with the road segment IDs used in the pavement asset management system. Once all the processing algorithmic generation is done, our team has developed a fully customizable user portal to significantly elevate the end user experience while providing comprehensive insights into condition index results. This portal offers an interactive and dynamic interface, enabling the users to engage with customized OCI calculations, which are overlaid onto other GIS datasets, including census data, parcel information, zoning, and land use data. Our friendly interface features easily configurable widgets, providing users with multiple viewing options, adaptable settings based on their preferences. Harnessing the census data for informed decision-making. This is a very powerful tool integrated into this portal. The open source census data pairs with user-friendly tools and empowers efficient extraction of geographical insights. In this particular instance, we're looking at both customized driving distance as well as walking distance. Users can pinpoint areas of interest through manual selection or pre-existing parcel boundary files, enabling rapid extraction of critical information vital to planning and budgetary decisions. It empowers users to derive insight critical for effective planning, resource allocation, ultimately fostering a better community development. User-defined quality analysis. The enhanced usability interactivity of this portal allows the portal users to experience by offering an interactive platform, making exploration and data analysis more engaging and user-friendly. Customized insights. By integrating the iterative OCI datasets generalized and compared with other GIS datasets, the user can gain contextualized understanding of the OCI results, defect types within specific areas, aiding in decision-making. As well as this interactive environment, we offer on-demand reporting. The user is given the capability to generate ad hoc user-defined reports, aided using current census data provided by the users with up-to-date, tailored insights critical for the decision-making process. Associated point cloud and imagery viewing options. So along with the OCI tool, the OCI defects, as Sandra mentioned before, we capture many other data sets, spherical imagery, and LiDAR. We also add street-level viewing options to help inspection. So the street-level inspections serve as a valuable method for on-ground assessments, offering real-life visualization of the infrastructure conditions to help determine the severity of defects and overall condition at the time of collection, or can be used as a simple reference. We have a couple options. We can provide available open source imagery. The open source imagery is a great cost-effective offering, enabling a broader perspective and enabling multifaceted historical examinations. We also can curate street imagery collected during our project. This directly correlates with the overarching data set and identifies defects clearly based on the field collection. It simplifies the data categorization and streamlines the quality control process of defects. And finally, we also can host a three-dimensional point cloud. This point cloud data facilitates an enhanced visualization and analytical capabilities, specifically enriching the overall utility of the data and elevating the user experience. Looking forward, I will pass the torch to Sandor to pick it back up.
All right, thanks, Scott. So with the items that we've discovered here, we really had a lot of success with what we've coined as our Gen 1 system. This is just an image of it here. You can see the control computer on it. There's an image of one of our collectors working in that Florida county collecting this information. And it really provided a rich data set. But there's always room to improve. And one of the things that we're looking to do is to develop a basically Gen 2 version of this system. So with the Gen 2 system, what we're looking to do is move the profiler from to a wide scan angle versus a single scan line. We're looking to add a higher accuracy LiDAR system with dual head sensors, so we get a better, denser point cloud as we do this collection. And we're also looking to add a panoramic 360-degree camera as well. So essentially, we take the components of what was in Gen 1, and we are just upgrading the technology to get richer data sets out of these sensors. An example of that is shown here. This is a pavement scanner that WGI has, where we've taken it and we've applied it to sidewalk crack detection. Essentially, this is a single head sensor that captures a 14-foot swath of the ground behind the vehicle. And we have in the processing suite for that sensor, we've worked with the manufacturer to adjust their automatic detection algorithms to work with the sidewalks. So not only can we use this for roadway assessment, but we can use this for our sidewalk assessments as well. And the nice thing about this is this data is easily ported into that OCI calculation that we keep mentioning here. So it's whether we're doing a Gen 1 collection or a Gen 2 collection, we can quickly update the input data to work and calculate that same condition index. So it improves our repeatability, especially year over year, having this level of detail in our data. Another advantage by having the mapping grade LiDAR data is it allows us to capture very detailed LiDAR from a position that is unique. Typically, LiDAR sensors of this type, you only have one viewpoint to capture from, which is from the road. By us moving it to the sidewalk, not only does it help us with our extraction of sidewalk assets, but again, we're taking that data and we're using it for other purposes. Whether it's to supplement a right-of-way asset inventory, we get a very unique view from being on the sidewalk with this system. And between the high-density LiDAR and the pavement scanner, we get very, very accurate data, especially with the pavement scanner. We get accuracies down to 1 millimeter of depth on the sidewalk itself. So it's perfect for doing this type of crack detection. And then another advantage of this is between the LiDAR and the pavement scanner, it's perfect for doing ADA ramp extraction. So if we have to do any kind of ADA assessment to determine if ramps are compliant or not, this is the perfect data set to do that. Some of the other things that we have is we have our WGO.tech platform that allows us to take not only that pavement data, but also our point cloud and imagery and put it into an HTML5 viewer that allows you to access it from any device. But we also have device plugins that allow you to pull this information in and extract information or view information in the ArcGIS or QGIS platform. So the data is all provided, all this information is extracted, and we can provide any extracted data into any type of GIS file format, be it shapefile, file geodatabase. If it has to go into Postgres, we could do that as well. So it's really a rich type of data that we can extract out of this and provide. So this is really, WGI, we are a full service geospatial firm, from surveying mapping to GIS, asset management. We offer a lot of services, and we're proud and excited to be able to offer additional new service lines using the latest technology like the sidewalk assessment and analysis. So um, with that, just like to thank everybody for joining us today. And at this time, we'll take questions.
Thank you, gentlemen, for that webinar. Very informative. As of right now, I do not see any chat in the chat box, but if you, as a participant, have a question that you want to ask these gentlemen while we have their time, please feel free to add your question to the chat, and or if you feel comfortable, you can come off mute and ask the question yourself. All right, I do have a question from Dan. Was there any impact on some of the measurements of the sidewalk surface by liter or debris, as in gum, cigarette leaves, etc.?
That's a great question. Based on the type of measurements we were taking, if there was a potential for that, it's something that we would have detected in QA when we were reviewing the imagery at some of the defect points. So there's always the potential for that, but that's where QA is a critical portion of this process. We have to make sure that even though it is automated in how it detects things, for those conditions like that, we got to be on the lookout for potentially missing items because of things like debris. So that's a great question.
And we have another question from Keith. Does the operator wear the LiDAR backpack? If so, how heavy is it?
For the Gen 1, yes, the operator wears the backpack LiDAR unit. I don't have the exact weight on it, but I've actually worn that unit myself, and it's surprisingly lightweight for all the technology that's packed into it. And they were comfortably wearing that for hours at a time.
We still have some time for some more questions. If you'd like to either come off mute and or enter your question into the chat. So we have a follow-up. What if the operator moves a bit? Does it distort the LiDAR data?
No, it does not. The backpack system has its own internal IMU and has its own GNSS antenna, so it's always knows its position independent of the profile of the ESV itself. So we get very accurate positioning information for both the profiler and for the backpack system.
Great, thank you. So I have another question. I am an election official and concerned with ADA with regards only to ADA in voting. Was told this type of analysis will give too much information. Any comments?
Yes, actually, that's something that we encountered when we were performing this work for the county in Florida. Um, we were very aware that there's a lot of sensitivity to this data, especially when it comes to liability. So we worked with the county to ensure that it wasn't made publicly available. They kept that for their own internal analysis.
Great. And then this is a follow-up to that same question. We do sidewalk analysis manually, and it is extremely time consuming.
Yeah, we understand that. Actually, that's one of the reasons why we pioneered this approach, because like I said, we're able to capture 35 miles of data a day, and beyond the QA process, it's pretty much automated in getting that overall condition index and the generation of all the GIS data that we were showing. So it's extremely efficient.
So great questions being asked. We still have some time if you'd still like to enter your question into the chat. Or if there's any other areas that you gentlemen at WGI would like to expand upon. All right, I have another question. Have you thought about or used some of the acquired data to leverage into or develop a data set of driveways or entrances / egress to the properties encountered along the way?
That's a great question, and that's actually one of the reasons why we try to collect such a broad amount of data using the LiDAR system. It's something that could absolutely be extracted out of that data set if there's a need for it. If there's a need for it beyond sidewalk assessment, any of this data could be used, whether it's sign inventory, interest in utility poles, looking at fencing, whatever it is. If we've captured that corridor, we can extract the data that you're looking for, just like we would for driveways or entrances to properties. It could easily be extracted.
So here's another question. The data is amazing. What is the typical cost per mile of sidewalk? Is there a subscription fee to the software platform for viewing the data?
So the cost per mile, it's in a little bit of fluctuation right now. I don't have that number specifically. I could get that. What I'll do is I could follow up with Lindsay and provide that information. Because one of the main sources was that Florida County, and we went on that as a bid. But we are working out what the cost per mile will be. But really, there's a lot of factors dependent on that too, such as how many miles there are. There's mobilization, things like that. Our aim is to make it as cost effective as possible, so that agencies would look to us not only for a single collection but also down the road. That way, they can look at the same apples to apples data sets, and then you start to do those time delta comparisons to see where things have changed.
Great. And Dan had a follow-up referencing the driveway and property entrance location. He said, would suggest talking with 911 authorities about that as they have an obvious use case for it.
I absolutely appreciate that suggestion, Dan.
I wanted to touch back on the subscription-based fee for the platform. The platform would be curated to the client themselves. The only fee would potentially be how we host the point cloud data. Other than that, it will be included in your project.
Great. And right now I'm not seeing any more questions. But you don't have to be shy. Did we do a last call for questions? Maybe just a few more minutes. So are there any final thoughts or words from our presenters today?
No, we really appreciate the opportunity to let us present. If you do think of any questions after the fact here, Scott's going back to where our contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're more than happy to talk about the approach, the technology, and the data. If somebody wants to see what that data looks like on a little bit more of a guided tour, we'll be glad to do that.
Well, thank you both for presenting today. We very much appreciate WGI sharing this information with our communities. And thank you all for those of you that attended the webinar live. I'm very happy to always have you engage in great questions from the audience. I know we all appreciate hearing others' thoughts and getting more information. This webinar will be recorded, as you know, and will be up on our NSGIC knowledge base soon. And so we hope that you connect with WGI if you have a need, and look forward to having you all on some future calls with us. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thank you.